Greetings everyone, welcome to Advance. This game was played in Title Tuesday with the white pieces. We have an absolute legend, 5 times world champion and the world's top rated player. We have Magnus Carlsen with the white pieces playing against a young prodigy, which is Jeffery Xiong. And if you look at the score, in the 19 or 20 games that they have actually played, Magnus has won 10 of them. One game was won by Jeffery, and the rest of the game were drawn. And the thing is that on over the board clashes, I think the score is almost similar, but only one game I think Jeffery was able to win in clutch international tournament. That happened in 2020. It was a rapid game, so definitely this is good. With Blitz, it just gets very difficult. So without further ado, let's start with this game. Hey, Magnus started with d4. We have knight to f6, c4, e6, and just knight to c3 is the Indian game. Bishop to b4. This is the Nimzo-Indian defense. Now just comes f3. f3 is the mock variation of the Nimzo-Indian, and this is going to be very difficult. Here just d5. We have a3. Now bishop captures, b captures, and the c6. Magnus definitely trying to troll his opponent. We have e4 now. Magnus is going to try and have very massive center. We have d captures, queen to c2. And the thing is that if you go for e captures, just knight captures, and after castles, you play bishop to d3 and your position is absolutely fine. But after queen to c2, we have castles, not falling for anything, just f captures now, opening up the king's position even more. But now just comes e5. e5 is a brilliant move. You'll see this move in a lot of openings, even in King's Indian sometimes. Hey, just knight to f3. Now just comes e captures, e5, immediately you're striking in the center, and Magnus's position right after move 11 is better. So will he be able to convert? But now just comes a rook to e8, and now that pawn is bent. Now what do you do in this position? The move that you want to play maybe is just bishop d3, just develop in this position. If you go for knight bd7, then the thing is that c caps on d4, and now I have a massive center, and this is gonna get very ugly, very fine. And the thing is that that bishop is out of the game for the rest of the game. At least till 2 or 3 tempos. And if you play a move like b6, then just comes castles, and after knight to g4, if you try, then just bishop caps on h7, and your position just completely falls apart. So that all could happen in the position. But after rook to e8, we have c caps on d4 immediately by Magnus. And the thing is that now, does it work, does it not work? He just comes c5, and just challenging the center, we have bishop to d3 and just knight to c6 by Jeffery. We have castles by Magnus, knight caps on d4, knight captures, and queen captures. That comes with the check, and king to h1, rook to d8, just putting extreme pressure on that bishop. But now just comes bishop to g5. Bishop to g5 is a great move in this position. The thing is that, what do you want to do in this position? If you go for queen caps on d3, that would not be a good move, because then you don't want to go for queen captures with because the thing is that if you go for rook captures, your position just completely falls apart. And even with this piece grabbing, your position is still not that good as black's position. So what you want to do in this position is, after maybe just play rook f to d1, and you can see that there is immense pressure. You cannot capture, otherwise you just get mated. So here just queen captures on d1, sacrificing the queen, because here after rook captures, you have bishop to f5, and you cannot capture because you're just getting back rank checkmated otherwise. So here just queen to c1, but now just comes rook captures, queen captures, and knight to e4, attacking the bishop, and the position would be really amazing for Jeffery. Magnus, this is the only way for Magnus to try and get a little bit of an advantage. You have 3 pieces for the rook and an extra piece, 3 pieces for the queen and an extra piece. So most likely Magnus is going to come out on top with this, but it could have happened. But after bishop to g5, now just comes queen caps on e5, not going for it, and well, this is just very difficult. Now hey, bishop caps on f6, g captures, and you cannot even go for queen caps in this position. So this is just much worse. Hey, just bishop caps on h7, just grabbing the pawn, king to g7, and rook a to e1, attacking the queen. And now you understand what I mean by this. Engine still loves black's position a bit too much, but the thing is that you have to understand these 2 rooks are just looking very scary. But now just comes queen to g5, bishop to e4, and just bishop to e6, queen to c3 now. And maybe that's why Engine did not like this move, because the thing is that it's very easy development for Jeffery, and on the other hand, Magnus still has to try and figure out what to do with the active rooks, and the last 2 moves has not gone in Magnus's favor. A rook to d4 now plays by Jeffery immediately, and if you go for a move like bishop to d5 in this position, maybe you're fine. After bishop captures, c captures, rook captures, now you play rook to f3, and then you're threatening that. So either you move the king away, or maybe you just try something else, but the position could be holdable. But after rook to d4, rook to f3 was played by Magnus, and this is the move that blundered it all. In this position, hey, Jeffery goes for rook captures on c4, not even worried about this because your own queen is hanging. So here queen to b2 was played, but now just comes rook to h8 and queen to f2, but now comes this queen to h4. And now you can understand, either you trade the queens and you go into inverse endgame, or in this position you just get checkmated. Definitely you don't want to go for that option. So he just queen caps on h4, rook captures, and bishop caps on b7 was played by Magnus, grabbing a pawn while at it. But the thing is that this position does not help that, because he just rook to c2, king to g1, rook to d4, and he just bishop to e4 was played. If you go for a move like rook e2 f1 and try to go for this, but the thing is that rook d to d2, and now after rook caps on f6, you play rook to b2, and after bishop to c6 c4, and that pawn is pushing no matter what you're doing. It just, if you try to go for rook 6 to f2, you just play rook captures, and you have c3. You cannot even trade because this becomes a pass pawn, and it's completely winning because you have the light square bishop which will control the queening square. So all of this could have happened, but after rook to d4, bishop to e4 was played, attacking the rook to a2, and rook to c4, and we go into a similar endgame where c4 was played by Jeffery, h3 by Magnus, but just rook to d2, and now you can see that there's immense trouble. You cannot move the bishop from this diagonal, otherwise there could be really serious consequences. Hey, bishop to f3 was played, but just comes f5, king to h2, and just king to f6, king to g3, rook to d3, and rook captures, pawn captures, and just king to f4 was played, but now just comes d2, and you can understand that pawn is very strong. Rook to b1 was tried, but now just comes a rook captures on a3, and we have rook to d1, rook to d3, bishop to e2, and rook to d4 check, king to e3, king to e5, and just g3 was played. We have a5 now, rook caps on d2, rook captures, king captures, and just f4, but here just g captures, king captures, h4, and now just comes a4, and here king to c3 was played, a3 now, but just bishop to d1, king to f5, and here just bishop to e2, and the position is very much winning for Jeffery. All he needs to do is just convert very decently, but king to e5, and king to e5 is not a good move because there is only one move in this position which will ensure a draw. So I'm gonna ask you to pause the video, try and find out the only drawing move in this position by Magnus. Have at it. So congratulations to everyone who's able to find this move. The move is h5, and h5 is such an amazing move because the thing is that here after f6, I mean, what do you do in this position? You want to be able to push the pawn, but if you push h6 right away, then bishop to g8, stopping that. And if you go bishop to d3, trying to go for the promotion, then just going for this f5 would be sealing the deal because you cannot push this pawn. I mean, king is always going to be there, and bishop is now guarding that, and both bishops are stuck, defending each other's pawn. So even you're up a pawn, but still this position would have ended in a draw. But in this position, both being in insane time trouble, was not able to find the move. Magnus played bishop to d1, and this just completely blunders the game. Here f5 was played, but now just h5. He found the move, but one tempo late, and the endgame is completely winning. King to f6, now just comes h6. We have f4, bishop to h5, king, bishop to g8, and just h7, but now just comes bishop captures. King goes to capture the pawn, but now just comes king to g5, bishop to f3, and king to h4. King caps on a3, king to g3, bishop to c6, and king to f2, but this pawn in game is completely winning. Here king to b2 was played, king to e3, king to c1, bishop to e4, and just bishop to b5, f3 now, king to d1, f2, and now in this position, king and everyone is just creating a blockade towards the white king. That's why this position is completely winning. Bishop to f1 was played, but now just comes bishop to f3 check, king moves, and hey, bishop to e2, but after bishop to h3, king to f4 was played, but now just comes king to d2, but just amazing move, bishop to b5, and you are just creating again that blockade crisscross thing, and there is nothing you can do. Next, this is coming, and your position would completely collapse. This endgame is completely winning. Magnus realizes this, and on move 65, he resigned the game, and Jeffery has gotten another victory against Magnus. Definitely one to keep in the database and increase the score for this amazing prodigy. So yeah, thank you all for watching. I'll be coming back with such amazing games, so stay tuned to the channel, stay updated, and I'll be seeing you guys very soon. Thank you very much for watching.